Hey, I'm James from Smokin' Dad Barbecue, and today we're doing the battle of the small Kamados. So I'm going to compare the Kamado Joe Jr. versus the Big Green Egg MiniMax, show you some of the differences and what I like about each one. So come on. Alright, so you're looking for the ultimate weekend tailgate machine. I want to show you some of the differences between the Kamado Joe Jr. here on the right and the Big Green Egg MiniMax. Overall, they use the exact same size grid diameter, and they both function very much the same. You have a bottom draft door on the bottom to control air, and you have a daisy wheel on top that you can close and adjust to regulate temperatures. Some of the main differences between the two is really just in the height and the carrier. So you'll notice Big Green Egg has a carrier, nice two handles on the side that make it easy to move around. And if it's a little too heavy for you, you can always get a friend to help out, but for short distances, it's no problem. And the Kamado Joe also has a nest that makes that easy to move around with a handle. The main difference being the height of the Kamado Joe Jr. is a couple inches taller, as well as the clearance between the bottom of the Kamado Joe and the ground. Okay, we're going to start both the MiniMax and the Joe Jr. Assembly is very similar. Both have a fire grate, an air gap, and space for your charcoal. So the charcoal grate is in. I'm going to go ahead and add some charcoal. Okay, well, both those are coming up to temperature. I'm just going to bring you for a walk over here to the table for the Big Green Egg. And so while I put out great food on both grills, the Big Green Egg MiniMax and the Joe Jr., I want to talk something very practical. If you're making a purchase decision, this is the spot where I keep the MiniMax when I'm not taking it with me on the road. And I want you to notice the tile here, which has cracked. This happened when I was doing searing a steak. It wasn't too hot, 500 degrees. But what I noticed after I removed the cracked tiles before adding additional tiles for extra clearance is the charring of the cedar in the table underneath. And so one of the reasons that happens is the height difference in the carriers between the two. Big Green Egg MiniMax has an easy to use carrier. But two things that I think could be better about that design. One is the distance between the bottom of the egg and whatever you've set it on. And two has been addressed, which is these handles. They're held together by screws, and these have been known to come undone. There's an updated version of this design in the newest eggs, and that's not a problem, but if you're buying secondhand, that's something that you're gonna want to watch out for. The Kamado Joe Jr. One of the things that I've really liked about that is I put a tile here just for illustration, but you don't need it. There's absolutely no heat that I can feel underneath where you can see the fire is already roaring, and so you don't have to worry about doing any damage to your surface, as well as the handle system is welded right in, and so there's no screws or anything to potentially come undone. So if you're carrying from your truck, your van, to a campsite or wherever you're gonna go do some cooking, two things that I think make a big difference. Okay, we've got our Kamado Joe Jr. and our Big Green Egg MiniMax lit. They're both coming up to temperature. I'm gonna go ahead and set them up for an indirect cook. So let's go ahead and install the diffusers in each. I'll start with the Big Green Egg MiniMax, which uses a plate setter design. And so this is meant to go in with the feet facing up, and your grid will sit on top of that. And same thing for Kamado Joe. I'll point this out, and this is part what we're going to do our test on. But you can already see that you get a little bit of additional clearance between your plate deflector, your heat diffuser, and the cooking surface and the fire. So that'll be something handy, and I'm going to highlight in the little experiment we do. But first, just go ahead and drop that in on the notches, and we'll add our cooking grid. So we'll let both come up to temp, and I'll see you in a second. All right, quick update where we're at. We lit both grills just over 5 minutes ago. So the Joe Jr, I'm already settling down, slowing the rate of acceleration. So we're at about 450 degrees on the Joe Jr. MiniMax a little further behind, just sitting shy of 300. It'll catch up quite quickly. I wanted to point this out real quick too, while we're doing this, since that's something I've noticed, but I've never lit both side by side. It's been a hypothesis that the extra clearance that you get in the height of the Joe Jr. allows for more airflow. So we lit both at the same time. We're using the same charcoal, and they're both the exact same size grid, so very similar cookers. But that extra vertical height in the Joe Jr. itself gives a little bit more of an air gap between where your air intake is, the charcoal, and the heat deflector. Whereas in the MiniMax, as you saw earlier, I can show you again, is your charcoal is pretty tight space between charcoal, your plate setter, and then the height between the grid and the plate setter itself. So this doesn't mean you can't cook amazing food. I've done a lot of great meals off of the MiniMax, but again, this video is intended for people that maybe haven't yet got their first small Kamado and you're trying to decide between the two. One of the things that I've come to really enjoy about the Kamado Joe Jr. So hang tight, let's get both up to temperature. We're going to simulate doing a spatchcock chicken, and I'm going to show you some of the differences in how both products approach indirect convection cooking. All right, welcome back. It's actually only been 5 minutes, but you wouldn't believe it, because welcome to winter in Canada. It's 5 o'clock and already the sun is down, so went as quick as I could. But where we're sitting at right now is we've got the Kamado Joe Jr. Reading just a tick over 400 degrees, as is the Big Green Egg MiniMax. And so to show the two differences relatively quickly, we're going to do a toast test, a lot like a taste test, but with toast. And that's just to highlight a few of the differences that I mentioned. So I'm going to take a piece of toast and we're going to slide it underneath the Big Green Egg MiniMax, where there's less clearance that I mentioned, and do the same for the Joe Jr. And then what I'm going to do is put another piece on top of the grill. And I know this will burn quite quickly, but I'm hoping I can show you some of the differences between the height on the Joe Jr., between the grate and the heat diffuser and the MiniMax. So let's go ahead and add our toast to each of the grills. So I'm just going to time this for a couple minutes and come back and see how or if any difference exists on the toast on the grills, and then we'll check in on the toast underneath to illustrate the difference in the height between the two designs from Big Green Egg's Nest to the Joe Jr. Carrier. So I'm just going to set a timer and I'll pick you up in 2 minutes. All right, welcome back. It's been 2 minutes. Let's check and see how we made out. So start with the Kamado Joe Jr. Let me just turn that light off so you can see temperature. Not sure if that's making it any better, but it's at 400 degrees. Let's take a look at our toast. Okay, so actually looks like good toast, not burnt, dry on the top, and nice and brown. Let's check on Big Green Egg. Also, right on the button, both are at 400 degrees. Toast looks the same on the top, but okay, so let me put these side by side so you can see difference. So on the left, we've got Big Green Egg toast, and on the right, Kamado Joe. I know that's kind of a funny way to illustrate this, but I tried to think of a way quicker than doing a spatchcock chicken or having two birds to illustrate the difference in the height gap between the grid and the plate setter on the Big Green Egg, and the grid and the plate or the heat diffuser on the Kamado Joe, since it makes it a lot easier to turn out consistent food. So that's a quick difference in the height difference between the two grills. Let's check on our subterranean toast down there. I'm just going to put the camera in the stand since I don't want to put my fingers under the egg. It's a little hot. So as you may be able to see, it's definitely not burnt, but there is toast effect happening, and so that's just been under the green egg for 2 minutes, and you're already getting some dry scratch. I don't know if you hear in the mic. Let's grab the okay, and Joe Jr. toast is still more bread-like. So that's not really scientific by any means. But just again to illustrate the difference, what I showed you earlier in the table, where I got some charring underneath the MiniMax, and I haven't had that problem on the Joe Jr. And so this means if you're going out camping and you want to set your grill on top of a picnic bench or a guest outdoor deck or patio, you don't have to worry about doing damage from the heat coming underneath. So anyways, I hope you found this informative. If you're in the market looking for a small Kamado grill, highly recommend them. I've had the Green Egg MiniMax a couple years and loved cooking with it, but more recently this summer added the Joe Jr, and for all the reasons covered in the video, absolutely love it. And if I had to pick between the two, I'm going Team Kamado Joe on this one. So let me know if you have any questions. I did this video in response to comments left below, and the next most requested video, I'll give you a little hint, sitting behind me is the Kamado Joe Jr Classic versus over there lurking in the dark, the large Big Green Egg. So stay tuned, give me a thumbs up or a comment in the video below if you want to see anything different, and we'll see you next time.